You got the Key Bridge. It's been struck by a large container vessel. Key Bridge is down. There's last reported at least several vehicles in the water, with several people still unaccounted for. Or what appears to be a vehicle in the water with flashing green and orange lights. It is completely submerged. Is anybody hurt? One subject has a minor hand injury.
C-13 dispatch, the whole bridge just fell down. Start, whoever, everybody. The whole bridge just collapsed.
The list of bridges, I think, was compiled based on spans that were similar or longer, and also the idea of non-redundant steel tension members, or what used to be called fracture critical classification. And I don't think those characteristics are necessarily a good way to make a list. The risk to a bridge is complex, and it's based on a lot of things. What the traffic is under the bridge. Obviously, if container ships aren't passing a certain bridge, they don't need to be considered in the pier protection that's required. Also, the waterway, the navigability, the conditions of the piers, whether a ship can even contact the pier. The Francis Scott Key Bridge was a case where everything was pretty high risk, and in fact, the risk happened. The ship lost control, destroyed the pier. The focus on fracture critical non-redundant steel tension members is a bit of a misnomer. It didn't matter what bridge was sitting on a pier. If the pier disappears, the bridge is not designed to span over a missing pier. It's almost the same of holding a ball in your hand and pulling your hand away quick. The ball will fall to the ground with gravity, and that's what we saw. So the risks are really, you have to assess what the conditions are for each bridge. And it isn't just a matter of long span length that could put a bridge at risk. There's other barge and ship collision incidents that have occurred, and on much smaller bridges even. The focus right now is on shipping traffic, and the incident of what occurred in Baltimore has brought that focus, and it's really a good focus that we likely should have had by now, to look at the piers of bridges and the traffic that's going by. Certainly older bridges were all designed at a time when the vessels that were passing them were much smaller. Even if you look at the roster of ship sizes, the Dali that hit the Francis Scott Key Pier was comparatively small in relation to the largest ships that exist, and their speed and their weight produce a certain risk to the pier. The protection systems are expensive to put in, and so that's a budgetary thing. As a nation, we tend to have all the money that's needed when a disaster happens, but imagine if we spent pennies to the dollar on the preparedness to evaluate the risk ahead of time and make it so that something like this wouldn't have happened. In this case, it could have been something like a dolphin system. There are many ways to approach pier protection, and not all are defensive. You can use tugboats, you can use speed limits, you can use navigational assistance, and even other design features like locating piers where ships would run aground and not actually contact the pier in the first place. This was an extraordinary event, an extraordinarily rare set of circumstances. We don't actually know all the circumstances of this event, but those that we know, a massive ship losing power and losing the ability to steer itself. I'm sure we're going to learn in the investigation other factors that contributed to this, and it takes a lot of factors to cause an event like this. It isn't ever just one thing. There are not rampant vulnerabilities throughout our infrastructure. The American Society of Civil Engineers does a report card for America's infrastructure, and they update it quite often, and it does point to good practice preparations and the maintenance that's required on bridges. And the one thing I would suggest we pay more attention to as a nation is that maintenance. There is not a bridge that exists in any material, in any design, that doesn't depend on proper attention to the maintenance that's required to keep that bridge in proper service. And that requires funding to do it. And it seems easy to cut that funding when money's needed elsewhere, but that funding is important for the maintenance that's required.